I am super excited to be here with today's guest, Kate All from Simple Pin Media. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
You bet. I would love if you would be able to share a little bit about who you are and kind of, how you're showing up in the world for people that aren't familiar with you yet.
Yeah, I have an agency. It's a Pinterest marketing agency. I've had it now for 10 years. So most people know me in that realm as a Pinterest educator, strategist, agency owner. I started that 10 years ago in 2014. And it was really the result of really this merge of what the online space was doing at the time. Facebook was changing. And then also coming out of the recession, financial crisis for my family. We are a family of five. So living on food stamps, about to lose unemployment. And a friend suggested I start managing people's Pinterest pages. And I was like, that's the stupidest idea because nobody was really doing it. So I thought, why should I start something that nobody else is doing? And they would say yes, but desperation makes you do great things. And so in 2014, I started Simple Pin Media really just kind of as I guess, a Hail Mary. Like, I hope it works. And I got these three clients and said, if this doesn't work, then just we will never talk about it again. And 3 months later, they were like, it's actually working. And so I got a couple more clients, a couple more clients. And then from there, it really exploded into this whole thing that I just never could have imagined. So that's where I am today.
That's amazing. I love that you started your business not only from a place of kind of the financial pressure of being on there, but also kind of picking a path that didn't kind of seem the most obvious based on what you had already been seeing in the marketplace and things like that, and what a lot of other people were doing. So, as you were kind of looking at starting this business from that place, what was kind of the hardest thing to overcome with that? Was it that, oh my goodness, I need to do this for financial size? Was it, is this the right direction to go in? Or was it kind of a combination of all of the things?
Yeah, I think it was a combo of all the things, right? So I am not a big risk taker, but when I look back at that time, I think that was such a huge risk to try that. And I'm also somebody who kind of frames up references of things with how something else looks. Like a great example is if I get invited to a party, I want to know like what's the dress, like who's going to be there, where is it located? I want to kind of know what I'm walking into. So with this, I was in all these like subgroups about Pinterest marketing and I knew people were like trying it for themselves. But because I never heard about anybody else doing Pinterest management, I thought, how do I frame this up? So it's kind of like pulling out this structure of a service based business from scratch. And that really, I think, helped me understand that, like, okay, I just have to try it. Like, there's no framework. So I guess this is how it's going to work. And let's hope for the best.
Man. So was there anything in particular that you drew from before? Like, had you done an agency of some kind before? Were you a service provider before, or was this really kind of out of the blue?
Totally out of the blue. So I was asked to work with a friend on her frugal and deal blog in 2010, and that's when, like extreme couponing, like the recession was really at the lowest. And she said, "Will you manage my Facebook page and do affiliate marketing?" And my degree is in political science, so this is like so far away from anything. But she taught me WordPress. She taught me Facebook and she said, I just really want you to figure out a way to increase engagement, get people talking, get this growing, help sell anything we have with affiliates, right? So in that, I was learning kind of just about the online community overall. And so I think the one thing I had to take with me into a service-based business was that I was like with all these bloggers. I was in these circles where they were saying, I'm so frustrated with learning SEO. I'm so frustrated with affiliate marketing. I'm so frustrated with Facebook when I have all these things on my plate. So I had very much that in my frame of reference that if somebody is going to hire me, they want me just to do it and they want to trust that I'm going to do it. And I need to communicate back to them that I am trustworthy, that I am taking care of it. And that is how this was going to work. And that's really all I had in my head was, well, I know your pain point. Let me just help you figure it out. And then it kind of went from there. But I didn't know the term service provider. I didn't even think about the term agency owner. I just thought like I'll manage this for you. And I even think in the beginning it was like Pinterest management company is what I would kind of call myself, but the company was just me. And I felt like a fraud. I was like, I'm calling it a company, but it's like me at the kitchen table. This is crazy.
So as you were kind of taking on those first couple clients, and I love the way that you frame that too, of like, I just needed to meet the need they had. You knew that you needed to take things over for them. And I think that's something that's super common for all business owners, right? We get to the point where like, I can't do this thing anymore. You don't really, oftentimes you don't want somebody to kind of come alongside you and show you how to do it. You just need the thing done and know that once it's handed off, it's going to be owned by that person. They're going to do a great job, and you can then use that brain space for something else that you really need to focus on. So those first two clients that you started working with, was it a fast learning curve as you were trying to kind of figure out how to do this for somebody else?
Yeah, it was. It was. And I actually think with those three clients, what I was looking for was patterns. So, very much the way that I'm wired is I'm a high achiever, but I also am very like methodical. And so I wanted to see, okay, could this work? And I had done some testing on the account of the blog that I was working for before, but it was more like I wanted to figure out, can I manage multiple things? And also see multiple patterns in all the accounts that I'm working for and use that to my advantage, to where then I could actually say, oh, yeah, I know this does work because I've tried it on three accounts, or I know this doesn't work, or maybe it's a hit or miss. It's all dependent. So it's kind of trying to figure out just really how to navigate not only serving them, but managing them. And then also I was still working for that other blog too. So I think I was trying to figure out how I worked best. Like, and I also had, my kids were like three kids under four, right? So they were smashed together. I think my youngest was going to kindergarten and I had two at home. So I was very much like working in the margins of, okay, it's nap time. Okay, it's, you know, the kids have gone to bed at 7:30. Okay, now I can work. So I had to really be laser focused on like what I was doing during that time for the client.
Oh, I think that time management piece is such an important part of that, because I think for anyone who has kids at home at the same time, there's always that constant juggling. And I don't know about for you, but I sometimes still kind of waffle back and forth of like, if I'm working, I feel bad I'm not spending time with the kids, and then I'm with the kids, and there's things in
Yes.
my mind that I'm like, oh, but those really need to get done. And it's been hard to kind of get to a point where I can kind of differentiate between those two things and make sure that I have the time set aside for the two. Was that something that was hard to kind of figure out when especially when the kids are so small and they need so much from you?
Yes, it has been really hard. And I would say, when I started, my daughter was 8. She's 18 and now she's launched. She's just graduated high school. So my life stages have changed so much through that. But I don't think that ever changes. I agree with you. I think there's that tension that moms feel, or stay-at-home parents feel, that are also stay-at-home working parents. Like, if we were to go to an office per se, we wouldn't see reminders of the things that maybe we're not doing, right? Like, there's dishes in the sink, or I know I need to start this dinner. Like, right now I'm doing this podcast with you and I'm smoking salmon. Like, there's so many different things that we're doing. And my son is here and he's 14 and he really doesn't want to hang out with me. And it's fine. But I think there's that thing of, am I doing enough? Am I contributing enough? And that's just, I don't think there's ever going to be a good solution for that besides saying to ourselves in this moment, on this day, yes, I am doing enough. And also to be really clear with my kids, I had to kind of do this earlier on because I am the primary breadwinner for our family. So to explain to them that, like, I might be home all the time, but I'm working. And this is my work pays for X number of things, or does these things. And for a long time, my husband was at home too with his job. So our kids we were around all the time. And I thought, what are my kids going to have a view of work? Like, how is that going to translate for them? So I think it never ends, right? And now my kids are 18, 17, almost 15. And then I have a bonus 9-year-old every other weekend. So it's like, I feel like I could never win in that department, and I really never win in my own mind.
That's such a great point. And I think we're in the same boat. My husband works from home as well. And my daughter, I think it was last year, kind of came home from school. They were talking about career things. And she's like, I didn't really think about the fact that other people's parents actually leave the house and go to work all day. She's like, because I have no frame of reference of that. My husband started working from home 11 years ago, I think. So she would have been 5. My youngest was, or she was 6, and my youngest was 3. And so they've literally, this is all they've ever seen. And we've definitely gone back and forth with that too, of like, just because we're here doesn't mean we're available, and trying to figure out how to carve out those office hours and things like that,
Hmm.
right? But it's definitely been a process trying to get to that,
Yeah.
that point. So as you were having these clients coming in, has the growth of your company been fairly steady, or have you kind of had ups and downs along the way?
Yeah, it has been, I would say from 2014 was kind of this slow growth. And then 2014, I got another boost. And then 2016, 17, 18, even into 19, it like exploded faster than I anticipated. I'm sure my prices were too low at the time, which probably contributed to it. But I also think the market needed like the service that I had, and there weren't a lot of people doing it at the time. So I was filling a need, whereas like there's more people who do what I do now. And so going into 2020, there was this explosion because Pinterest exploded. But then when we got to 22, we really saw our very first downturn. So really to go from 8 years of solid up into the right growth was amazing. But I would say these last 2 years that we've had a decrease both years in 22, 23, and probably 24 have probably taught me more about the difficulties of running a business. I think if I looked back at those previous other 8 years when it was growing so fast, I didn't have to do a whole lot of marketing. Now I'm having to really think about my marketing. And marketing right now in online space is infinitely harder than it was before. So I appreciate those years, but I feel like it gave me a false. I was a fake business owner during that time. There was a whole lot of things that I probably should have done different, didn't need to do. Hey, there was just there's no tension, right, to really kind of sharpen me.
I think it's a really interesting way of looking at that, that when those years, when things go really well, it's great because your business is growing. But sometimes, like you said, you don't really learn those lessons of what you have to do when things don't go well. And it is easy to kind of get into that feeling then of like, this is just going to continue forever. I don't have to, I don't have to learn those things, right? So
Yeah.
when you first kind of had the first year where things weren't going as well, and the growth wasn't in the same way, just, with market changes and all of the things, how did you kind of handle that personally? Did you
Mm.
feel like, okay, this is a new challenge, this is something I need to attack? Was it a hard thing to kind of go through and be like, oh no, now this thing isn't working? Like, where kind of were you
Yeah.
at personally?
Yeah, I remember it well. It was July and August of 22. And I remember feeling like both a mix of like devastation, like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? And I think it was because I believed that I was doing everything right before when I think I just got lucky, right? So going into August of 22, I was like, what is happening? Like, what is, I just can't even wrap my brain around it. And then September came and October came, and I kept watching our bank account go, but I hadn't like cut my staff. And so, really, I would say I was internally losing my mind. I was panicking, but I didn't tell anybody. And I think that was I look back on it now and I wish I would have said something sooner. And it got to December of 22, and I actually had a complete panic attack. And it was like, we don't have any money. Like, I don't know how I'm going to make payroll. And I was a part of an entrepreneurs organization group here in Portland. I had a forum of 7 people. And in November, I had actually broken down in a group with them. And I said, I feel like a fraud. I feel like a failure. I don't know what's happening. Was this all just completely like luck? And now it's like going away. Like, what is this? Right. And they were so encouraging to me. And one of the things they said was, you should get a line of credit just in case. And my first reaction was, absolutely not. Like, I am never going that route because nobody in my circles had ever talked about that. And frankly, I had been in circles with people who were online business owners who also had experienced growth like me. So we did have extra cash on hand. We did have all these buffers. And so there was never a need to have the conversation about a line of credit. But now I'm sitting in the room with all these other business owners who have navigated the recession, who have been in business for 20 or 30 years, who said to me, this is just a wise thing to do in your business because you might need it. And so in that December morning when I came home from the gym, my body just gave out. And I thought, I have to do something. I finally told my husband, I finally admitted, like, we're not okay. And by a miracle, I got on the phone with the bank and I got this guy who was new to my bank. And I said, I need a line of credit. And a friend had told me, like, don't sound desperate. And I was like, okay, I won't sound desperate. He said, you just want it for future projects. And so I applied for it, got approved. And 3 weeks later, I had this. Had I not had that line of credit, sunk. Like, there's no way I could have paid anybody. And it was like just the thing I needed to like think clearly. But at the same time, another thing was happening was I joined this agency mastermind. It was free. It was out of LA. It was this like branding agency. And they normally had their calls at like this really weird time, like 5 o'clock on a Thursday. I'm like 5 o'clock on a Thursday. Like I'm making dinner. Like I can't join that. Well, they moved it to like 11 on a Tuesday. I joined it and it was all agency owners. And somebody asked a question about how you're doing. One after the other would say, I wish I had the cash that I had in August. I wish I wouldn't have spent this money. My clients are leaving in droves. People are freaking. It was like I was in a room of people and I was like, oh, it's not me. Like I'm not the one who got this wrong. It's all of us. And I think that's the beauty of sharing stories, right? Because when we hear from these other stories that it's not just us, we go, okay, I can take this backpack off that says you're a failure. And I can say it's the economy, it's where we're at. It doesn't mean I don't have to do any other things, but I can say with confidence, I am now experiencing what every other service provider or agency owner is experiencing as well. And so it was probably the hardest time I've ever had in my business to date. But had I not had that experience, the past like 2 years, I wouldn't beat myself up so much because I've been through it. I go, okay, I can look at the person who has the nail salon at the corner or the person who has the local hardware store. And I can say, if they've been in business for 30 years, there is no doubt they've experienced what I have experienced. And who am I to think that I would never experience a downturn in my business? Like that is completely crazy to ever assume that in 10 years, I would always have an up and to the right graph. Like it's just not possible. But I think the online world kind of led me to believe that that was possible.
Absolutely. And I think that is such a danger in the online space because not only do we see a lot of businesses that do have the ability to grow really quickly and to sustain a fair amount of growth, we also are so inundated by seeing what they're portraying on social media as what's happening. And I think that was one of the things that was really eye-opening for me when I first started working with other businesses was that these businesses that looked like they were so put together on the outside, when you get into the back end of their business, they weren't put together at all. Mm-hmm. And that was so surprising to me. I thought, oh, it must just be a one-off. And then it happened again. I was like, oh, this must have just been chance that two people were like this. And then it was on and on and on. And I think, it's so easy to think that everybody else doesn't have struggles. Their finances are fine. They have no team issues. Their operations are just humming along. But that gives us that false sense then of somehow that we don't measure up, even though the people that we're comparing to don't measure up to that standard either. Like it's such a hard thing to try to work through. And I love that you've been able to reframe that then and say, you know what, this is what other people experience online, but also in other places. And I think that's such a testament to being honest with other people and having people around you that have gone through those same things, because you realize you're not alone. You realize this isn't you. It wasn't that your luck ran out. You are, an amazing business owner. It's just, through a bunch of things that you can't control, sometimes things get harder. So I love that you were able to reframe that and then take that and use that over the last couple of years to really kind of keep propelling you forward and keeping that momentum.
Yeah, for sure.
That's amazing. So as you've kind of gone through the past couple of years then, have you been able to like really kind of maintain that attitude? Does it kind of like sneak in every once in a while? Do you go back to the group and be like, ooh, this is kind of challenging again? How do you deal with that when those old mindset things that, you kind of feel like sometimes like things were like, you're fixed and you're like, okay, I understand that thing. I'm going to check it off. But they sometimes kind of creep back a little bit. So what do you do when those kind of sneak back in?
I, number one, understand my wiring. Like I know that I am driven towards perfection. I am driven towards achiever. And when I say perfection, like I don't need like things to be totally perfect, but I need them to be systematic. And so when those things don't work, it does throw me off my game. And so I'm aware of it and I go, okay, I know right now that the words that are going to come into my head are going to be, why didn't you get this right? Very accusatory. And what can you do better? How can you, really drive towards it? I had a similar experience this morning. We were talking about conversion rates of our discovery calls to people who are come on as clients. And I was just kind of like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong? And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to ask. I'm going to go into the groups that I have and I'm going to ask what other people's conversion rates. I'm going to Google, I'm going to look around, and I'm going to see, okay, what is it that other service providers are experiencing? And also on LinkedIn, I asked recently, like, what is actually working for you? Like, I don't want you to sell me into your thing. I don't want any of that. I want to know from service providers and agency owners what is working for you to get clients. And all of them that referrals, referrals, referral. And it's like, okay, I can have my DMs where people are selling me all these leads for blah, 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 right? So I want to get curious. I want to instead take this energy that would normally be focused on me, like, why don't you do better? Which I have an element of that always. But at least I can turn and I can channel it into like, okay, what are we going to do to be productive? What are we going to do? And I know now too that it doesn't happen on a dime. Like what I do today probably is going to take 3, 4, 5 months. So it's continually asking myself the question, okay, am I still in this game? Do I want to stay in this game? And do I want to keep pressing against it? And for me, my market has become saturated. So there's an element of the first one out of the gate doing Pinterest marketing and now not the only one standing at the starting line. How do I distinguish myself? How do I do things differently? How do we serve a different audience? And that is, I think, what fuels me instead of kind of falling back into woe is me. But also, I'm very clear now, too, to say, even Leslie is my COO, and I say to Leslie, I just got to spin out for a minute. I'm not going to try to like not feel it, but I'm just going to say some things. I probably don't mean them, but I just got to really be really pissed off right now. Just give me a minute. And that's a good thing. Like I get it out instead of trying to stuff it down.
That's amazing. And I think knowing yourself and what you need is so important because, again, if you look at other people and like, but this person handles it like this, well, they could have a completely different way of understanding things and processing and getting over things and everything like that. So knowing yourself and what triggers you, what gets you back out, that's amazing. How did you find the team members that you have to be able to support you in that? Because like having that relationship with your COO is incredibly important because you need somebody who, when they hear you say, I just need a minute to spin out, isn't going to panic, right? So how did you find people that kind of complimented you in that way?
Yeah, that was I would say it's a little bit of like not the traditional way and then the traditional way. So when I started actually, probably about 8 months into when I started my business, my daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes and we were in the hospital. And I remember having this thought, I need a number two in case of emergency, just so that somebody can help me. I don't want to be doing this while I'm sitting in the hospital. And so I had a local friend that I knew who was at home with her kids. And I said, hey, like, if I teach you how to do this, do you think you want to work for me? Like be a contractor? And she's like, sure. So we were in this like grocery store cafe area and I was teaching her how to do these things. And I thought, well, this is really cool. Okay, if I can do more of this, then I can increase my team. And so then I hired another friend, another friend, another friend. And then when I got to 2015, I got intentional about it. And more it was like, and when I say intentional, it was more, oh, I'm going to actually like strategically hire people, but I have no system. So Leslie, who is my COO, I hired her 8 years ago, over 8 years ago. We met in Target. She was from like the city across the river. And I said, like, hey, this is what I do. This is kind of my business. Do you want to work for me? And she had no idea it was an interview. And she was like, let me think about it. So she comes back and she was like, yeah, I think I'll work for you. Well, that kind of situation happened. Shannon, who was on my team, she had recruiter experience. I'm pretty sure she hired somebody that she met in like TJ Maxx when they were searching for like these certain types of pottery. And so for a couple of years, because I was growing so fast, I was just hiring, right? And then I think probably like 2017, 18, 19 is when I was like, okay, now I need to structure a team. Now I need to tap into this leadership skill that I have. Now I need to equip and empower people. Made a lot of mistakes, but I think what we now know about how to build our team we've learned through a lot of trial and error. So now we have a full built out system where we like evaluate people. We read Patrick Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player. It's excellent and it has an assessment for Hungry, Humble, Smart. Went through that. And so I think I got really lucky again too with really people who are loyal. A lot of my team members are still with me who have been, 7, 8, 9 years, right? And they're still here. And I'm kind of like, you're still here. Like after all this, after all that you've seen of me and my mistakes and my crazy, you're still here. But yeah, they are.
I think that just goes to show how important it is to hire for character and for that team
Yes.
culture fit, right? And I think it's easy to be wooed into, oh, but I don't know, we have this idea of like a person we need or a skill set, I guess, that we need, or a particular agency or something that was really helpful for somebody else. But finding that culture fit for your own team and finding those people that you genuinely gel with and that you can be yourself with and that you can make mistakes in front of and apologize and be able to move forward in the relationship. I think that's amazing. And I love that you found people in such unconventional ways.
Yes. I wouldn't recommend it, but
Do you still add to your team? Do you try to add locally first?
um I would say it's been a while since we've added a team member given where everything's gone since 22. But yes, I really like it. But at the same time, we're open to wherever. And honestly, we're more open to referrals within our team of people that they recommend than we are just like putting out a posting to hire for people. We have done that in the past and it's worked out fine. But we find if there's a connection, it tends to work out a lot better.
I love that. I think that definitely holds true both with team members and often with clients as well, because you can kind
Yes,
of find more people that if they've already gelled with somebody that you've gelled with, chances are that's probably going to carry over pretty well.
totally.
Yeah. So you had mentioned there that, as you were kind of starting off, that your daughter had been ill and just diagnosed. That was kind of as you were just getting started. How did you juggle all of the stuff that was going on at home? And I'm sure that's a lot of mental space to take up when that is your kid
Yeah.
that's going through something huge and this diagnosis that's going to have a big impact on your family while you're also trying to start this business. That's really important for you guys to be able to function as a family too. So how did you kind of manage both of those things?
Yeah, I think probably not well, if I'm honest. I I think what I learned about myself in the beginning of business is that I would just power through those hard things and I really wouldn't allow myself to feel it. And I think I've learned probably in 22-ish is when it was really aware. I became aware of like you can't run from grief that you feel. And I think there is a grief moment when your child is diagnosed with something that alters their life. And yeah, it was mentally taxing because in the beginning with type 1 you have to do all these calculations and all these like you are so overwhelmed and I remember sitting on the back porch just crying and I think that was my grief coming out, but I probably saw it more as like defeat. Like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm getting into this. But again, I think it went back to compartmentalizing pieces of things. But I would probably say from that moment into probably 21, 22, I just really didn't do well. I pushed past it. I tried to just, I would feel kind of like, oh, I feel sad, blah, blah, blah. But then I would quickly try to work on something else. And I had a coach that I worked with at the time. And she said to me in a call, do you know that you've said get it right 7 times in the last 5 minutes? And I thought, oh, because that's what I was striving towards. I was striving towards this mythical image. And so when I was faced with tough things, I thought, well, I have to get to that. I have to push through that. I have to like, so I didn't really allow myself to stop, but I hyper achieved it. And, I've had a lot of people say to me, you're so organized, you're so management, you can manage all of these things. But I think a lot of that was just the only thing that I knew. That's all I knew was to manage it all, put it into these places, make it work, and then keep going. And I just think that really like it was going to come to roost, if you will, and have me figure that out. And I just think it took a while to do that.
Fair enough. Did you get to a point where you had to stop and actually take the time to grieve?
Yeah.
Like, did it Did it kind of catch up to you
I
eventually?
think multiple things caught up to me, to be honest. I would say so. We had my daughter diagnosed in 2014. Then we stepped in to do foster care late 2015. It was not in our plans at all. And then in 2017, she returned to her family, which was not what we thought would happen. We thought there was adoption, all these kinds of things. And then now co parenting, learning that. And so I think from 2017 to really actually, I think it was August of 21, if I'm not mistaken, I just fell apart. I was literally at a park with my husband and our foster daughter and my son. And I just was next to I told my husband, I said, I don't think I've ever grieved all the things that I've been through in these last several years. Like I'm falling apart. And he was like, what? And I said, I need to go to counseling. Like I need therapy. Like I'm smart enough to know that I am not equipped with the skills to be able to understand how to process grief or process what I've been through. I need somebody else to help me do that. And so in September of 21, when our kids actually, I think they went back to school that year finally. And so it was like probably the grief of COVID and the grief of all these other things just kind of tumbled out. And since then, actually, the therapy that I received during that time has helped me so much as a business owner to be able to now navigate the ups and the downs and go, oh, I can see it this way. It doesn't have to be so black and white. But I just think it took me a long time to hit that point where I just broke.
I love that you had the self awareness, though, to realize that you weren't okay. Because I think oftentimes that comes from somebody outside of us that can see us kind of starting to unspool a little bit and be like, you need to get some help. But obviously, you were still holding it together pretty well if your husband was a little bit surprised by the fact that you weren't okay.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I think that's a testament to the personality too. I think we have very similar personalities, and I think that it's not easy, but I think sometimes we tend then to look like we're put together, even when things are maybe not going so well. So I love that you were able to identify that you needed help, get help, and then take the lessons that you learned from getting that help and be able to keep applying that as we go on too. I think a lot of people who probably were just kind of holding on, then COVID happened, and it was just a lot for everybody, and there was like this collective grieving, but it was happening to everybody. So I think maybe everybody felt like they shouldn't be grieving because it was happening to everybody at the
Yes.
same time. It's a very strange thing to go through as a culture, and I kind of wonder what that impact is going to be like on our kids
Yeah.
as they get older too, at the ages that they were at, going through everything that they did.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a very interesting time in their lives, and yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens 10
Yeah.
years down the road and things like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So as you've kind of navigated all of these things with your kids, how has your family felt about your business? Like, do your kids kind of look at that and like, this is amazing, my mom runs this business? I know you said sometimes it's hard because, you know, you're home and it doesn't necessarily look like you're working because you're
Yeah.
at home. But how does your family feel about your business? Like, do you guys ever kind of talk about that?
Oh, if I had to be honest, I would say like my kids probably don't even know what I do. I mean, I know like I have this office out here, my she shed in the garden. Like they know that I have a podcast. They know that I have a YouTube channel, which I think having the YouTube channel probably makes me cooler than in their eyes than I actually am. And you know, my husband, he knows that I work with Pinterest. He knows the struggles and everything, but I would say we keep it pretty separate besides when I take them on work trips with me. So they have been able to see me speak. They kind of have an idea of what I do. But it's really interesting to me. I've thought a lot about, especially as my oldest daughter graduated from high school, like what her career path is going to be. And I grew up with this like, you graduate, you go to college, and then you do that career, right? And I had to really wrestle through what that was. And granted, the cost of college is astronomical, right? So that's going to help make a lot of decisions right there. But I said, like, you don't know what you're going to do. I was like, look at me. I have a degree in political science. My plan was to be a teacher. And now I run an agency and I do all these things. Like, you're going to change jobs 7 times in your life, if not more, or careers. So when you're young, take this opportunity, like, go travel, go figure out, discover who you are, what your gifts are, what your talents are. And then who knows? So I think it's given me that springboard to say, like, look at my example. They're definitely happy about the opportunities that we get when it's coupled with my job. but I still think they don't get it. It's kind of like the TV being on, or the TV being on the wall, right? Like, this is just, my mom just does this. I think it would be very strange for them if I started to go to a 9 to 5. I think that would probably freak them out.
It's what you're used to, right, and what you
Yes.
grow up with. But I bet they probably see a lot more than what you think, and
Yeah.
I bet that your ability to have this business and to, that you make decisions and that you're the one in charge of the things. I think that probably is very inspiring to them. And we've kind of gone through the same switch of, we went to university. That's just what you did. Like, there was no options. You go through, and this is the path. And it was probably about 5 years ago, maybe, as I was kind of really getting settled into working in the online space, that Eric and I started having the discussions of like, would we want our kids to go to university no matter what? And it was this massive shift, because up until then we would have said, absolutely, like, of course that's going to be their path, or some kind of post-secondary training, right? Like, whether it's trades or something. And we both kind of started going, no, actually, like, there's so many other avenues of learning. And I think that's one of the great things for our kids' age, is that I think when we were coming out of school, it was kind of like, this is the job you're going to pick. And there wasn't a lot of talk of like, oh, but you could change later. It was like, you're 18, you have to make this decision right now for the rest of your life. And it felt so heavy.
Yeah.
And like, what if I make the wrong choice? And what if I end up in a profession I don't like? Whereas our kids, I think, are getting more of the message of like, you can go and learn these skills. And if you need to learn more skills, or to, bolster your education in a certain way, you can do that, and you can switch careers, and it's going to be okay. You can do things that you actually like to do. Work doesn't have to be this thing to be endured. You can actually enjoy it.
Well, and I think too, I reflect a lot on the fact that their world is filled with creators, right? Like, they're watching YouTube, or they're paying attention on Discord. Like, my oldest daughters use Pinterest a lot too. And I think it's very fascinating to me that a viable career as a creator was not an option when we were thinking about, a university, or just going, or all these things. Like, the whole economy looks different. And so even for them, I want them, if they aspire to be a creator, to be eyes wide open, to not have that thing that I had, where the online world was coming up and people were making money on Facebook, hand over fist, and they were running ads, and it was like, you could print money. Like, I don't want them to have this false understanding of the internet. And it may be that's kind of what we're going through right now, with this reckoning of like how people get seen online and how they get exposure. And we might not have that for them, where it felt like, the wild, wild west. But yeah, I agree. It's like, what are their options? Can they pursue? And how can they remain, I guess, driven in a good way, that like, you got to pay your bills, right? But you don't have to do this thing that you hate. But there might be times where you do things that you hate. That, I think about my girls, they work at summer camp all summer, and they volunteer. But last summer they did like the worst job on staff, right? It was called crew, and they were cleaning toilets and washing dishes. My girls came back. There's no more complaining about washing the dishes. They clean the bathroom. They do an okay job. But like, it's that experience for them showed them that like, I can do these really hard things, and I survived. And you know what? I might not have to do them forever, because now I have a different position at camp, and I'm now a hierarchy, but I've done the lowest job, and I know what those people feel. And I think that's super valuable.
Oh, definitely. I think when they have an idea that everything is just going to be lovely and wonderful all the time,
Yeah.
that's not great either, because no jobs are like that. I mean, I love what I get to do, but there's still aspects of it that I'm like, oh, okay, I have to kind of buck up and be like, okay, I can do this thing, even though it's not my favorite thing. And I think it's such a gift to them to be able to get them to do things where they do have to kind of find that inner grit and resilience, and be able to be like, you know what, I can do this thing, I can do other hard things. And it's like a muscle that's built, right? I mean, like you were saying too, I mean, the hard parts in your business are the part that prepares you and gives you the strength and the stamina and all of the things to then face the next hard thing and the next hard thing. So you're like, if I survived that, then I can 100% survive this next thing too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, I so appreciate having this conversation with you, and for you sharing some of this about your journey, because I think it's really encouraging to hear that other people can go through these hard things and have it be something that can turn out to be something good in the end, and that we can glean things from it that help us as we go forward. Sometimes it doesn't feel like that, I don't think, in the midst of the hard things that we're going
Yeah.
through. So it's nice sometimes to be able to hear other people's stories of overcoming that, to help remind us when we're in the midst of hard things that it's possible for us too.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your candor. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit, for people that are looking for Pinterest management, looking for support in that area, what are the kinds of businesses specifically that you serve and that you guys really kind of connect with?
Yeah, all types of content creators, and then any type of e-commerce seller, whether it's a physical product or digital product. We really don't work with service providers. I actually can't think of any that we've worked with, or coaches. So that's not really our expertise, but content creators or e-commerce businesses.
Okay, that's fantastic. And where can people find out more about you or connect with you, connect with the business? Where's the best place to find you online?
Yeah, simplepinmedia.com. And then we are at simplepinmedia on all channels. So feel free to connect with me. We are most active like DMs on Instagram, but I just started playing around with threads, but I love LinkedIn too. I don't know, LinkedIn has been like this weird place. So find me on there. I'm Kate all over there. So they can come chat with me.
I feel like LinkedIn is kind of like the unknown, and it's kind of the weird one for social media that feels kind of like apart somehow, like it doesn't kind of function in the
Yeah.
same way, so it's a little confusing to people. So it's great if people can find you and connect you there and have a have a
Yep.
connection, because sometimes it feels like a little bit of a scary place.
Yes, it does. I agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kate. I really appreciate you, and thank you so much for being here today.
You bet.